Hello, everyone. We're glad you're here. Welcome to our podcast, Foundations, Expert Concrete Training and Adventures, hosted by concretepreneur and industry-recognized expert David Stephenson, and joined by new guests every episode. David has been in the concrete industry for over 20 years as a contractor, operator, owner, product developer, and consultant, and has started, grown, and sold contracting companies as well as chemical manufacturing and equipment companies, and is currently the principal consultant with PCC Consulting. With clients ranging from the NFL to Amazon to the Department of Defense, the largest and most recognized brands have consulted with David for their programs and project issues. Foundations is a free podcast for general as well as specialized contractors, owners, designers and architects, developers, and other concrete enthusiasts who may enjoy and benefit from being a part of conversations David has with industry leaders and some of the incredible people he's worked with over his career. We discuss where the industry has been, where it's going, and adventures to be had along the way. Now, here's your host, David Stephenson, interrupted with the occasional question by me, Rachel Fisher.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Foundations. Today we have a gentleman that's been a friend of mine for a long time. I actually used to work for him. His name's Lou Cooper. Hello, Lou.
Hello, Dave.
So, Lou, I'm just going to jump right in, everybody. Lou, you met me first. I was working for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. This is well before I got into the concrete industry. And I'd like to, you ended up hiring me away from them, but I'd like to the best of your recollection, can you remember how you met me? And I think that would be an interesting story to share with everybody.
Man, it's making me smile right now just thinking about that, just thinking about those days, and kind of giving me a little bit of chill bumps and that too, just thinking about, I was on the road. I was working for ADP, and I was having to travel. To Louisiana, and Mississippi, and I didn't want to put the miles on my car. So I would get my company I got my company to approve getting a rental car for me on these long trips. And Dave, that's where you and I met. You were an assistant manager, I think, at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And they were working you, like, if I remember correctly, somewhere between 60 and 80 hours a week. And, but you always had a smile. You're always happy. And then there was some things that I needed that were not the norm for an Enterprise Rent-A-Car location, where I would come home on Friday night and I would be after your store was closed, and I could just throw the keys in the glove box, lock the car, and you guys would just bill me through Friday instead of billing me through Saturday or whatever. And then number two, I had some interesting pickup times when I need to pick up, and you'd pick me up. You'd either pick me up at home, which was a couple miles away, or you were always going that extra mile, for me as a customer. And I said, whenever I get in a position where I could hire sales reps, I'm going to hire David Stephenson. So that's, fast forward a year and a half, 2 years down the road, we go over to TXU, and we're starting this new thing.
Let me pause for
Sure.
Let me interject there. So Enterprise Rent-A-Car, I think everybody on the call would know.
Right.
ADP stands for
automatic data processing.
Automatic data processing. And you were when you were doing that,
one
you
of the
were
biggest
dealing.
payroll.
If I recall, you were payroll firm, but you also weren't you doing like something with dealerships at that time or something?
In automotive. Yeah, I was working. Selling enterprise resource planning systems to car dealers.
Yeah, and then TXU is Texas Utilities, which is a really large energy company that got into telecommunications when the government opened up competitive phone service. So, at that time we lived in Houston, so it was Southwestern Bell, which is now AT&T, but Southwestern Bell was the local telephone company in Houston, the Houston area, and they had all the native switches, and they kind of owned all of the wiring infrastructure in the ground and everything. And so the federal government said, hey, you can't, that's all paid for with taxpayer dollars. You can't just monopolize it for yourself. You got to let people compete. And so Texas Utilities, a big energy company, decided to get into the telecommunications business and started a group up in Houston, TXU. And you went from ADP to TXU as a sales manager, right?
Right. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I had,
okay. And so
I had half the city. Yeah, I had half the city, and then there was another manager that had half the city, and then I had a direct report out of the North office that as well. But I was responsible for half the company's number.
I'm always amazed as I travel around the country and around the world. I'm always amazed at how little most people outside of Texas realize how big the city of Houston is. So for those of you listening, city of Houston, I think, is now the third largest city in the United States. It's in a county called Harris County, which I think is the largest county in the United States area wise. Mm-hmm. And I've timed this a couple of times. Driving from, west to east straight on I-10 from the time you say, oh, I'm out of the country, I'm coming into the city, until the time you say, oh, I'm out of the city going into the country, is almost 2 hours. And north to south, it's about the same. And now you kind of run all the way into the ocean in Galveston before you would say I'm out of the city. It's just a massive city. And so, having half the city is like having most of, some small northeastern states. You could cover the same people and a lot of the same geography in that half the city region. So you were over half the city, and you came from ADP over there, and then you had an opportunity to hire a sales team, and I was lucky enough to be one of the guys that you came after.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
If I recall, we had a pretty eclectic group that made up our sales team compared to the other salespeople in the organization. How did you, okay, so you said, you picked me because you liked my customer service and problem solving, I think. Is that right?
Yes.
How'd you pick everybody else?
Well, if you remember, David, Jay had brought me in. We had worked together at a prior company, and there was a VP in between me and Jay that they'd already hired. A lot of people, and it was I only actually got to hire a few people, and what had happened is they said is the other sales manager that had the other half of the city, and our VP did most of the hiring. They basically said, okay, here's our team, and here's what you're going to have, and then you need to hire up, another 2-3 more, as well as staffing, having to staff the North office. So really what I got was kind of like, somebody else has picked a team, and they pick who they think is going to be best, and then you get what's left. And it was really interesting that that we came in there, and from quarter one with the company, we were always number one. Like we were always on top. And then you had kind of come in the middle of the sales year with no experience in telecommunications whatsoever. You could
not even outside. I'd never done outside sales before.
So you went from ground zero, no knowledge, to the top producer in the company and wrote your sales number in like half the year. Was the number one sales rep for the year, and I think that they had to give you President's Club and things like that as well. So.
Yeah, I remember there was a year-long competition for sales, and the top 3 people got to go and the sales managers of those people got to go on a all expenses paid trip to the Bahamas. And so I ended up having the numbers for that, but I remember that there was kind of a big to-do in the company because some of the other sales reps that were close but a little bit under me were trying to say, oh, well, since you weren't here, here down in the fine print, you have to have been here for at least 6 months, and you were only here for 5 months and 3 weeks. And so you don't qualify to take that trip. And, and so I think, I know you went to bat for me. I don't remember all the specific details, but somehow they ended up letting me come, because they couldn't say that I wasn't hitting the number. So we ended up making a trip to the Bahamas. Actually, I'm going to get a little aside here and come back to where we're at in a second. So that trip, I remember very, very vividly because Heather's my wife, obviously. We went down on this trip, and it was there was a brand new place that had just opened up. Was it Paradise Hotel and Casino in Grand Jamaica or whatever. And it was this beautiful, massive, amazing hotel. And we were there for like 4 nights or something like that, or 3 nights or something like that. And it was really cool. And then the second to the last day we were there that night, I went down and I was playing blackjack. And man, I got so lucky. We ended up winning several $1,000s playing blackjack. And it was enough to where I took some more days of vacation afterwards, and Heather and I transferred to a different resort on the opposite end of Jamaica and stayed for like another 4 or 5 days just on the blackjack winning, from what I won on the sales trip that I won. And so we ended up turning it into like a 10-day trip. And it was a lot of fun and really, really enjoyable. So you ended up taking the dregs of the other team, plus adding in a few select players that you got to pick yourself. If you got me on customer service, what were the things, I guess I'm trying to kind of understand a little bit about what made you pick different people. Do you remember the other employees that you hired? The other ones that you actually picked up? It was more, I got to work with a great man. His name is Billy Dixon, that what he was looking for was grit, or the sparkle in the eye, or something that's going to make you, people want to listen to you, people to want to listen to you or gravitate to you, and combine that with somebody that has a track record of success. It may not be a success in sales, but just successful at the job that they're doing. Like, they have the sparkle, they have the grit, and they have the drive, right? If you got those 3 things, you got the makings of somebody that's going to be great.
I just want to pop in here and clarify that I just heard you say sparkle and that David has sparkle. Is that what I heard?
Yes, that is what you heard. And it was the sparkle. It was the sparkle and hunger in his eyes. You know what I'm saying?
I get it. I'm hooking into sparkle. Perfect.
Sorry about Dave if I've messed up your the persona that you have, and I apologize.
I don't have a persona. I just am.
That's right.
I think it's great.
Yeah. Whatever comes out is what comes out. Exactly. I still do have that same drive today, even all these years later, which, for clarification, this was over 20 years ago that this story that he's telling and we're talking about. And I still work 60 to 80 hours a week. I just do it on things that I enjoy even more. Do different things today. But so the anatomy of a salesman that you're looking for is sparkle, or, you know, something that sets them apart, something that, you know, the smile on your face and just kind of an upbeat general personality. And then the grit, meaning, you know, I assume by that you mean kind of a work ethic, somebody that's gonna push and try to fight their way through whatever obstacles they come into in order to be successful. Yeah, okay.
Problem salespeople, we're problem solvers, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're selling concrete or phone lines.
Yeah, it's the same thing. The thing that made me successful at Enterprise is I would figure out the hardest situations and, you know, somehow come up with an unusual way to make it where it was no longer a hard situation. And so, you know, I don't know where that came from or how I learned how to do that, but it worked pretty well for me there. And then obviously it worked pretty well for me in telecommunications. So I came in and I didn't know jack. I didn't know anything about it. I'd never done outside sales, didn't know anything about telephone lines other than you could remember a phone number and call somebody. And, you know, if I recall, I think first month I didn't sell a lot, but I was trying to learn a whole lot. And then I think I hit my quota number the second month that I was on, which was quite unusual. I remember getting called into to like your boss's office for congratulations that I'd hit my number, you know, in that second month. I think it was somewhat unusual. So from my end, what I tried to do is I said, you know, okay, here's my quota lines. Here's how many lines that I want to sell. If the average business has this many lines, and I consider that I'm gonna, and you know, I way sold myself low. I said, if I consider that I have a 10% close rate, then that means I need to go into this many businesses per month, and that means I need to go into this many businesses per day, and then I would set, okay, I need to go into 5 businesses before lunch and 5 businesses after lunch on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then I could use Friday as paperwork and catch-up day and follow-up day and just making sure that I was following the order. So 4 days a week, I was walking into, you know, at least 10 businesses a day that had good, you know, good options. And if they went fast, if you know, there was no real opportunity there, then I would try to, you know, plug in 2 or 3 or 4 more, you know, trying to find that 10% close. And I think I ended up, if I recall right, I think I ended up with something like a 55% close rate. So, so my numbers kind of got,
so you blew out your number.
Yeah, I kind of got skewed out of whack pretty fast. And then, you know, starting by like the 3rd or 4th month, I couldn't do that every day because I had too much paperwork to do to get it all processed through. So I would end up, you know, only being able to go out and hit the streets either part of the day or, you know, 2 days or 3 days a week or something like that. But, you know, it worked out. It was enjoyable and interesting and something new for me that I'd never done. So as you know, obviously you've been managing sales reps for a long time. You know, you didn't, before I came to TXU at Enterprise, as you move up in the ranks at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which is an awesome company, I would recommend anybody going to work there. You kind of learn how to run your own business, but under somebody else's care, which is a pretty cool kind of thing. But as you move up in the ranks at Enterprise, you know, you move around different branches and stuff, and you get to work under different managers. And some of the managers are just, you know, controlling, you know, they want to know every single thing that happens, and it's to the detriment, I think, sometimes of the people below them. You know, as a sales manager, comparing your style to the other sales managers that I worked for before and after, you know, you were much more laid back. But I don't know, the question I have for you is was that just my experience, or is that kind of generally how you manage salespeople?
I want to be a positive force in that's part of people's lives. You know what I'm saying? As a sales leader, like there's the success stories like the David Stephensons, the J.W. Armstrongs, the Paul Boyds, the Mark Shant, you know what I'm saying? Like these people that I've worked with throughout my career, it's like the coolest. It's just like the coolest thing. But I just want to be a positive force. And the thing that I had where I was laid back, I always, the times that I've failed as a sales manager is when I tried to micromanage, where I was caring about people's career more than they did. So I determined that I need to just be a positive force, motivate, and then either people take it or they don't, right? You remember when you were playing football, you can't teach hustle, right? You can't teach drive, that kind of stuff. You either have it or you don't. So I just was trying to motivate and be a positive force in people's lives. And like I said, whenever I started doing other people's jobs, that's when I ran into trouble.
So, as a more laid back and not micromanager, overall, if you're hiring the person, what do you believe like your general success rate is? Because I'm imagining that there's some people that can kind of talk a good game to get hired, but if you're not micromanaging them and they're kind of, just kind of doing their own thing without a whole lot of oversight, I imagine there's got to be a significant number of salesmen out there that just don't cut it. What do you think your overall percentage, or would you say kind of a success rate is if you're hiring the person?
In sales, there's when you're hiring as a sales manager, if you're getting it right 50% of the time, then that's kind of the average. I don't know. I think I was a little bit higher than that, just because when I was hiring somebody, like if I was hiring somebody today, kind of the extra interviews that I do, such as if they're married, go have break bread with them and their spouse, or being in a lot of different environments, and then also checking people's story to make sure they're not just lying to you on the success that they've had. You know what I'm saying? Anybody can say, hey, I was at 200% to plan at TXU. Well, how could I prove that, right? I can prove it for you because I saw it.
Right. Yeah.
But,
you knew.
Yep.
You'd seen me get promoted and followed me around the different branches as I moved up.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. So that is different environments, but I don't know, probably 70%. Like the biggest problem that I had was sometimes I would hold on too long. I would do that sales rep's job, and I would hold on to them too long, where it was making both of us miserable, right? So,
sure.
On the 30% that I had, that they needed to be doing something different.
So, in my role now as owner of companies and stuff like that, I've also had some good success and some not so great success with sales reps. I've had, I don't know, probably maybe 40 or 50 sales reps that I've hired over the last, give or take, let's say 10 years. And, I would say that my success rate is probably not as high as yours. I feel like that for whatever reason, when I end up hiring people, I don't know whether I give them too much leeway, but I try to, trust that they're going to do their job. And, sometimes that works out great, and sometimes it doesn't work out near as good. And, I try to give people, and I think this is kind of a general thing that I do, I try to give people the respect that I feel like that I would like them to accord to me. And, you're a professional, you know your job, and you do your job, and I'm here to help you and support you in every way that I possibly can. But if I was going to do your job for you, then I would just be doing your job. I wouldn't have hired you. So
one of us isn't needed.
Yeah, right.
If I'm doing your job, one of us isn't needed.
So the challenge that I have, even, all these years later, Lou, is that in all the companies that I've been at, I'm still the best salesman. I'm still the best salesman. I still sell, my close rate is, I don't know, probably somewhere in the 80th percentile or something in the businesses that I run today. And, usually if I'm sitting across the table from somebody, they're going to end up being a buyer, and I'm not trying to, do a hard sale or anything. Rachel, what is it you tell me? You have explained a few times when I say I don't understand how I sell and these guys can't sell or these other people can't sell. And you sat through some of those. What is it? How do you describe it?
Well, and specific to sales, I would say that you deliver. I don't know. I don't want to keep referencing the sparkle or the magic, but you are just really informative. You know every single nook and cranny, and you're really good at handling objections. But you're completely unaware of the. That's just not super common. In sales in particular, there's not a ton of hunters that are really good hunters, and you're just, you're unaware of just how unique it is to really help funnel people into the decision they ultimately want to make in the first place, or they wouldn't be sitting in front of you.
So, that's probably something I learned quite a bit from Lou on. How can we, in our listening audience, how can we translate or set that information up or set that situation up to share or teach others? Because that's where I feel like that I fail, is I don't know that I do a great job of teaching the salesmen that we bring in how to do that. So do you have any advice for us, Lou?
Well, now I'm giving presentations to Fortune 500 companies and meeting with people in the C-suites from large Houston-based companies. I'm talking to people all over the globe. The thing that I have to do right now in my career to be able to sell to these large organizations is, if I have a 1-hour meeting, I've probably got 10 hours worth of prep time. I've got partners to bring in and prep for. I have engineers that need to build stuff to show them. And it's just, I got a 1-hour presentation. I've got probably 25 minutes of the presentation myself, and then it's the rest of my team. But it's really in the preparation and it's kind of like what Rachel said, is you knew the nooks and crannies, right? You'd done the work, been through the situations, you had learned from it, and you're sharing that information on how you're going to help them solve a business problem. It's the same thing. It's doing the prep, knowing the nooks and crannies, and being able to articulate that in a great way in a meeting to get to with the decision maker to get the business.
So with that kind of thought process, is it okay? So in the story that we told of how you and I met, I came into a new industry that I knew nothing about, and was successful at it. If I don't know how many people can come to a new industry that they don't know anything about and quickly get up to speed to know all that information. So does that mean that in your overall success, that it's better to try to find somebody that at least has some knowledge about that industry to start with, so that they're not coming in at zero and having to learn all of it, in order to be successful, versus, what I did with you, or, how do you pick and choose that?
Yeah, it's more the person. It's more the person. Hey, I've changed technologies and started over new probably 4 or 5 times in my career. It's really that really that drive, that grit, that desire for knowledge, the curiosity that we have that helps us be successful. That's what you're looking for. Like you could rehire somebody else from another organization that maybe they weren't that successful there, and are you going to be able to do something different? Are you going to manage differently or whatever? Or is it better to find a great person and teach them how to, and show them about the business, put the training together. And if they have that curiosity and that drive, that's when you find something great, right? It's finding great people.
Okay. So less important that they're understanding about the industry then.
Absolutely. I don't know about your industry, but I don't know about your industry specifically, but even where we're at, right now I'm working, I'm working for Box, which is the content cloud, and we're the content repository for about it's a little bit over 100,000 customers across the globe. And anyway, I've seen countless people come in that had no idea about content before they come in, and they've been successful. But it's the same, three things. So
okay. So when I'm going to go back to when I worked for you at TXU. So when I
Sure.
first came on, if I recall, I was like one of maybe 40 sales reps for the city.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a ton of us, right?
Right.
And so the breakout or the split and how how the city was kind of divvied up amongst all the reps was by zip codes. So the city's got a bunch of big zip codes, huge, massive area. And so, when I first started, it was a zip code, but I did something, I don't remember how far into my employment, but I came to you and I wanted to, instead of doing a zip code, I wanted to focus more on a specific, like I called it a vertical market. Do you remember that?
Right. Yep.
So can you talk a little bit about that and, kind of what I did there and what was different, and then how that kind of changed some things in the company overall?
Well, if I remember correctly, you as part of your zip code, you had that Memorial City area, which is West Houston area, where they ended up having a huge, absolutely wonderful health facility, and then all these doctors' offices there. So I remember you got started over there, where you would park your car, you'd go have a ton of candy, and you would just walk almost like you were selling prescription drugs, but you were going medical office to medical office to medical office to medical office. So the story was this: once you figured out your story and sold the first one, then it was easier for you to duplicate that. You knew the nooks and crannies. You know what I'm saying? You were having the same conversation with the same people that had the same business issues on paying too much for their phone line. Like, you just figured out a way to duplicate that and really accelerated your success within the organization.
So I didn't understand, as I first came in, that wasn't a huge thing for me. It was just like, oh, hey, I'm working something in my territory. But very quickly it became where I wasn't just doing the Memorial Medical Center, but I was down in the Galleria, and I was out, in South Houston and way up in like the Woodlands, and working these other medical center groups, because for whatever reason, the reps that were in those territories were not near as successful in that vertical as I became. And as I, when you sign one office, a lot of times doctors will have multiple offices. And so they'll be, 2 days a week at one office and 3 days a week at another office. So then it became an easy transition for me to go from one hospital group or hospital complex to another big hospital complex where the other office was. And now I'm walking in I've already got, 15 customers there, because they happen to have duplicate offices that were in my original zip code. And so then, it would expand there. And then we'd get to the point where we're picking up the big hospital. And, you're picking up, hundreds of points instead of, with one person signing the contract instead of, 4 or 5 or 6 points, meaning like telephones or lines or whatever in a smaller office.
Sure.
And so how did you get permission for me to do that when it was different from the way that the zip codes were supposed to be structured?
Well, success allows you to do things like that. Like if we would have started out or a month or two into it said, hey, I want David to be over this vertical because he's good at it. You hadn't proved yourself. But it was easy, and it was easy to get Jay to buy off on it, which made our VP go for it as well, right? So you had success in that market. You had proven yourself, and it was just, it was just an easy conversation and to get Jay's approval to let you do that. And Jay Norman was I don't know if he was the president or what his title was, Chief Revenue Officer or something.
Something like that. It's been a long time, but
yes, it's been a long time.
He was a couple levels above you. I knew that.
Right. But yeah,
so,
you had the success. So I went to ask, and nobody else was doing anything in those markets. They weren't bringing any lines or any revenue in from any of those from any of the medical industry. So it was easy. It was easy to get that approval.
It ended up being great for me. I mean, I made a ton of money and we had great coverage. And then I think that I remember a couple of times having, conversations with multiple other reps in the team, and I would use the fact that, sometimes they were frustrated that I was working in their zip codes or their territory, and I remember that I would explain the multi-offices thing. And then I remember very distinctly in a couple of different meetings sitting there and making up a list of all the customers that I had signed, but that were in their territory, and giving that to them and saying, hey, now you can use this to get better saturation in your own territory, because you've got
references.
Yeah, you've got customers there. You've got the major hospital out in Rosenberg, as an example, and you got another hospital, Ben Taub Hospital, was one of the customers. And so, now you have the track record to go sell to other companies of the similar size instead of trying to do a bunch of smaller customers. You can go after the bigger ones because here you've got proof and track records, and we got phone systems in there, and they're all on our lines and everything. And so I tried to change the narrative from them being upset that I was in their territory to using those sales in their territory to help them sell more.
Exactly.
Which I did that trying to help, but also kind of from self-preservation, because it's not really a good thing if you're relatively, young in a company and all the veterans are pissed at you because you're taking their business. And so trying not to make more trouble for myself than I wanted to deal with. But interesting. I'll share something with our audience here that it served me well just to remember this story through my career. So when I came on at TXU, competitive local phone carrier had taken off. TXU bought a incumbent company out southwest of Houston, and started attacking the Houston market. Well, it was only, 3 or 4 years, and they decided, well, this has been great, but our core business is energy, and so we want to get back to that. So they decided to sell off that division. And so when I came in, I was one of, let's just say 30 reps. It might have been more, but let's just say 30 reps. And I did well, and I sold well and all that. And then it came time where they're going to sell off the division. Well, they're selling it to a company that's already got, an entire infrastructure in place. And so they didn't need us. And so I remember going into a big, how all the sales reps are in the big conference room. And I remember, your boss talking to everybody and saying, hey, here's what we're going to do. So we're going to offer everybody severance packages. And in that room, she just said, okay, we're going to go down the list alphabetically. and you have to tell me now whether you want the severance package or not. And so, started at the A's and worked. And I'm, Stephenson, so I'm ST. So I was almost at the very end. And by the time that they got to me, hell, there was only like, 3 or 4 people behind me. So I'm sitting there going, okay, well, 25 people in front of me have already said they're taking the severance package. So, they're finished up tomorrow and they're out. And I made the decision. It was kind of pretty controversial at the time. And I was the only one that did it. And I said, no, I'll be fine without the severance package. I'll just ride it till I can find something else. And I stayed, and everybody else left, and you left, and I was the only one there. And I didn't have a sales manager. I reported directly to the woman that was your boss, and I was the only guy left standing. Well, the interesting thing in that was what I knew was that when you sign up a customer, they're going to have continual changes that happen as their business grows or modifies or whatever expands. And all those little tiny additions, prove to be 5 or 10% of my annual revenue. Well, I'm sitting here going, okay, well, if they're 10% of mine and they're 10% of all these other 30 people, that's a pretty good chunk of business all by itself. And so by not taking the buyout, I ended up literally almost like tripling the number that I was selling before that made me the best rep in the entire company. I was tripling that number, showing up at the office in shorts because there was nobody else working. There was nobody else there. And so for, I don't know, something like 5 or 6 months, I sat there just basically as an order taker, but because I had a compensation plan and they're ready to offload the division, they're not changing the comp plan on you with only one person. That's way too much effort to go to. So I was getting like massive bonus by just picking up the, hey, I need to add a fax line. I need to add 2 more phones. And, hey, we're going to open a new location, and just every day filling that. And so I think that as people, I think sometimes it's hard to buck the trend. So, when you're sitting there and you've got, the first 5 people out of the gate, the first A's and B's that were in that room were scared that if they didn't take the severance package, that they would end up losing their job and not having pay to carry forward. And so once that kind of tide got started, everybody just went with the flow. And it was great for TXU because they dumped all the salary. But by bucking the trend or bucking the tide, personally, for my family, for us, we made great money. Yeah. And then, my wife wanted to, as we started, talking about having kids and stuff, her mother was a nurse in Arkansas. And so I was still working at TXU, and I applied for a company called Altel, which was doing the same exact thing in Arkansas that we were doing in Houston. And I did not let them know that TXU was closing. And so they were, anxious to compete, to hire me away from TXU. So I ended up giving them my paycheck stubs from the time that I was tripling up on my bonus, and they matched that and paid for our move to Arkansas. So where Heather wanted to be in the first place. And it worked out so well. I can't even begin to tell you how, just how crazy. So sometimes going against the wave and just thinking about what will happen if I don't do that?
Exactly.
You can lever up.
Well, number one, I was one of the quitters that day. If you remember, I do. Before it. I had a conversation with Jay. But do you know why they were selling? I don't know if you remember why they were selling it off. We were losing money on every transaction and trying to make it up with volume. So the more successful that we were with the structure that we had was the deeper in the hole that we're going. And TXU didn't want to continue to fund that. So that was kind of what happened. And a great opportunity to go back with AEP happened at the same time, working for one of my mentors. So,
I remember that. I remember you went back to ADP, as far as the reason why they were cutting it. I if I knew then, it didn't make a bit of difference to me because I was on a structured compensation plan. Yeah,
exactly.
I was making great money. And I got to I got to dig in a little more and learn a lot more because with no other salesmen and no sales managers, that meant that I got to deal directly with the engineers. And so I learned a whole lot more about telecommunications, by talking directly with the group that was installing the lines and stuff, and it would build out the phone systems and stuff. I learned a whole lot more. So, it served me well in my next job too. But anyway, that's kind of an interesting side thing. So over 20 years ago, I worked for you, and I've stayed in touch with you and you've stayed in touch with me, and we've, hooked up a few times and gotten together for meals and just visiting and stuff over the years. Do you stay in touch with a bunch of the people that have worked with you through the years, or have you stayed in touch with a lot of them, or just a few of them, or what?
I have. Well, the people that have had a positive impact in my life, I absolutely stay in touch with them. The people that have that I enjoy, that I enjoyed working together. Like you and I talk, 3 or 4 times a year. And then if we're in the same place, I know we haven't gotten together recently because you live up in, because you're in Dallas and I'm in Houston. But I can remember Brown's Country Kitchen, you and I meeting for the buffet line over there. But I have people like that. The regional director that I'm working for right now out of Fort Worth, he and I have stayed together, and I've worked for him at 3 different companies. And he and I, if we were working together or not, we talk once a month. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's made a positive difference in my life, and I think I have in his as well. So, and I have a bunch of sales reps that are the same, that have worked for me that are the same, the same way, and sales leaders that I've worked for.
You've never tried to hire me back. So what does that mean?
Well, it's because I couldn't afford you. It's because I couldn't afford you. Yeah, if I could have afforded you, I would have.
Well, yeah. My career is a little bit different place than it was then. You got to just, what do you think about that? You've watched me change careers. I've enterprise, car rentals into telecommunications, and telecommunications into concrete. What, in general, as you and I have stayed in contact, what's your overall thought about career changes and just, from the outside perspective as you watch me? Because most of the people on this that are listening to our podcast, they won't have known me near as long, and definitely wouldn't have known me before I got into the concrete industry. So what's your general overall thought about how things have happened over the years, and is this about what you thought when you first hired me?
Yes, it was. When I saw you at Enterprise, I was like, this guy's going to do great things, and I want to be part of it, right? I said, this is going to be, it'll be so much fun to go work together with this guy, day in and day out, and do battle. And anyway, so I saw that at Enterprise. I saw it, then I saw it at CXU, and then just watch your career where you've had the guts to kind of buck the trend or go your own way or do things differently than other people that have made you successful. You know what I'm saying? You've had the drive. You've done the work. You had the drive, done the work, and all with a great attitude and preparation. So, of course, you were going to be successful, right? And that's not to say that there's not things in your life over the last 20 years that there's things where you may not have had the success, or you failed fast and pivoted and went a different direction, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you one right away. So before, when I was a kid growing up, my family was in the air conditioning business, and my father is 5'10". He's a little short guy to me, and I'm 6'6.5". So air conditioning, getting up in tiny little attics is not something that's easy for a guy my size. So I didn't want to do that. But when I started to decided to start my own business, I wanted something that had, a shop like what I grew up with, and tools everywhere, and trucks, and just guys. And I wanted kind of the same thing that I'd seen in my grandfather's air conditioning company that my father ended up running too. And so I wanted something in construction. And so when I first decided that I wanted to do something in construction, the first thing that came to my mind was actually fencing, because there was a big housing boom going right then. And I talked to a couple of residential home builders that said, I said, what's the hardest thing for you to get? They said, oh, just fences, man. I mean, we have to get on the schedule almost 2 months ahead of time, because there's just not enough people doing them to keep up with the demand. So I thought, that's great. That'll be something interesting. So I got into fencing, and my first company was a fencing business, and it lasted all of about a month, because in 3 weeks I decided that I did not have the right ethnic background to be successful in the fencing industry. All the guys putting up fences are all Hispanic, and they all work amongst themselves, and it was extremely competitive pricing, and there wasn't great margin, and so I couldn't run it like I understood how to run a business and have any degree of success unless I came in the door with millions of dollars to buy material at such a high volume that I got great discounts, and then could have so many crews doing it that I can make it up in volume, right? But I realized that I didn't have millions to do that, and so I was not going to be successful there. So I scrapped that idea after just a couple of weeks, and concrete ended up being where I fell, actually because of another sales rep that worked with me at TXU. Her husband had a little decorative concrete company in Houston, and they used to invite us to go see their stuff at the home show and things like that. And I thought, well, concrete's kind of hard to fall through, good for big guys. That would be a good thing. And it seemed like an industry where there wasn't a lot of people already in. I'd learned that from the fencing business, that I didn't want to do something there was a lot of competitors in. And I kind of like the artistic component of it. That seemed pretty interesting to me. So like I did at TXU, I stepped into concrete knowing absolutely nothing. I didn't know anything about concrete. And I ended up getting into the decorative concrete, mainly acid stains and overlay installation to begin with. And that kind of one step led to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, that, moved me forward in my career. But that's how it all got started. So to your point, I tried something different in fencing and completely failed.
Yeah.
I didn't even stay in long enough to fail.
There was probably some other things through your trial and error with concrete on trying different products and applications and things like that, where you had some of those things as well.
Oh yeah. I've invented, for every one thing that I've invented that has been a huge success, there's been 15 things that I've tried to come up with that have not been successful at all. But luckily none of those have killed me yet. So
there you go.
Keep trying at those. So you moved through your life. You watched me move through, entirely separate industry, and you've continued to move along. What's the next level that you're pursuing? Do you like, just in general, do you like running sales teams? Are you, what's the next thing that you're pursuing?
Like right now, I have Houston for Box, and I work with a lot of global companies, and I can see myself doing this for another 7 or 8 years, something like that. And then I'll have the resources to, at that time is the time where I can pull the cord and start doing, fun stuff like startups, helping with software startup companies, or consulting on sales and sales strategy and that. But, right now I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy doing what I'm doing, and we live a great life. We live a great lifestyle and that right now. So at one point in time, I wanted to be the president of the United States, but, that day has passed. So, right now I'm trying to be a positive force at my job, on my team, with everybody that I interact with my customers, with my coworkers, and then also in my, my church family, or interactions that I have at Home Depot. Like, I want to be that smile. I want to just kind of have a positive impact on people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be in charge right now. I just want to be a positive force in the world. Right. So anyway, I know it sounds corny, but it's the way I think.
I have a very similar mindset. I want to try to help as many people as I can, and I don't necessarily, I help people without necessarily needing, something in return. I'll just randomly, people in the industry, out of the industry, if I can be a positive influence, I try to do that.
Right.
I don't know about not being not being the boss or not being in charge anymore, because it's been so long since I was actually talking to my wife about this the other day. At this point in my life, I don't know that I could go back to working for somebody else. It's been so long. Honestly, Lou, it wasn't very. I ended up being the best sales rep for Altel as well, but within just a few months of starting there, I started my own company on the side, and it grew quickly. And we were talking about this, Rachel and I were talking about this the other day. I ended up going to my manager and saying I need to go and give you my notice. And he said, well, no, I don't need your notice. And I said, no, I'm going to quit. He said, no, I'm not going to accept that. I don't want you to quit. I said, well, I don't feel right. I don't feel right staying here, because you're paying me for a full week, and my business has grown. My side business has grown to the point where I'm spending, basically 30 to 40 hours a week on that. And I'm not spending near the amount of time that I need to, working for Altel. And his answer was, yeah, but you're the best sales rep we've got. So if 20 hours of you is the best in the company, can we just leave it like that? And you can do your own thing. Just keep exceeding your number every month, and keep carrying my team up. And I need you to be here for another 2 years until I retire. And I ended up saying no. Because just morally, I just didn't feel like I could do that. I just didn't feel like I could put in the time. It wasn't fair that they're paying me for a full week when I'm not giving them a full week's worth of time. And so I ended up, saying, I thought about it for a few days, and no, I'm not going to do that. So I went ahead and turned in my notice, and lo and behold, he decided to retire early then.
Hey, I've got another story of another sales guy that I worked with, and then we were sales leaders together. And it was a buddy of mine. His name was Tom Lambs. He was out of San Antonio, that we worked together at ADP. And this guy took off every Friday because he was part of a master's program, right? So he would be so productive in the other 4 days of the week that he was able to take off Friday. And it kind of laser focused him that, hey, I only have 32, he probably worked 40 hours in those 4 days. But that's all the time that I have. And if I'm going to be productive, and, kind of like how you broke down your numbers, he broke down the calls that he needed to make, the demos that he needed to set up, the things that he needed to do. to be successful in those 4 days. Lo and behold, he goes through this 2-year MBA program, gets his MBA, and then he still continues to work 4 days a week. But Fridays is for
fun now,
for biking and family and surfing and rock climbing. You know what I'm saying? Like Fridays is his. He just doesn't work Fridays anymore, and that's a decision that he made 16 years ago, right? So anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
That's perfect. That's exactly the deal. So, well, today I feel like that my struggle is trying to slow myself down and not work too much, and to figure out how to do an appropriate split. Today, I own several businesses, and so trying to figure out an appropriate split of how much time I should spend on each thing, and what the investment needs to be to make this company more successful, or get this company going. And as I've moved up in my career, it's very interesting, the opportunities that get placed in front of me, and some of them, it's like I really would love to do that, but I just can't find the time. And so that's my challenge today. I'm not, I'm very blessed that I get to do what I love to do. I'm very blessed that I get to do what I enjoy doing. I do it because I want to, not because it's what I have to do. But, now I don't know that I could go back. I think I'll always be that guy that, I find laser focus for periods and get stuff done, at fast rates, and then change hats to something else, and do something else for a while, and then go back to this thing and back and forth. And it's kind of, I don't know, hard to keep up with, Rachel. But
I've been trying to bite my tongue. Yes, it is very hard because you do have a lot of capacity. Excuse me, and you do change gears pretty quick, but you still do it with a lot of quality, and I can't argue.
I still have the sparkle. Still have the sparkle.
You still have the sparkle. Jinx, Coke.
What I'm enjoying now, Lou, is actually starting businesses in completely different industries than concrete. So and I learned something from each one, and so we have I have businesses today in 4 other entire market segments that have nothing at all to do with concrete, but trying to be. I decided to do that to get more. Yeah, to get more waves under the boat. So I'm not, rising up and then going down with one industry. But also because, to your point, as you moved around, the recipe for success in one business a lot of times is the same recipe for success in another business. And, so you can duplicate the success in different areas, carrying that same formula in, or that's what I'm trying to figure out. But then you learn things in each industry or each business that that will help you in your prior businesses too, because you grow. I think each day, each thing, each whatever, it carries me forward and it grows a little bit. And I get to learn a little bit more, which then also in turn to, like helps me be more of a positive influence on other people's lives. Sometimes I'll learn things that I can share with somebody else, and I may have only learned it a few months ago, but it changes somebody else's life today. And so I try to keep that going and try to keep learning every day and just being that positive influence. So, Rachel, do you have any questions for us as you've been sitting here listening to all of this and some interesting stories and unpacking sales a little bit more, and what it takes to find and keep and manage good salespeople?
Well, my comment is not related to that so much as it is to something that Lou had mentioned about what he imagines wanting to do the next act or the next, iteration. And it just kind of like the common thread that I've noticed is that each of you seem to have one eye on your work, and making sure that that you're doing what you need to do, and it's craftsmanship in, in your trade, whether it's concrete or sales or, like the transferability of skills there, which is really cool. And then the other eye is also how to look out from that and make an impact where you're at. And I really appreciated, what Lou said. And obviously you guys have known each other, for a lot longer before I got in the picture, but you guys both walk parallel lines there, just like when you just said, I just want to make the guy's day in Home Depot. And, but you laugh and you giggle, but I think that's it's
fun
so important.
though.
And of course, but I think it's really important, sometimes just to get out from, just what we're focused on and just kind of look out a little bit into the world, sprinkle a little bit of sparkle wherever you go. It's good stuff.
Exactly.
It's good stuff.
On Sundays at church, there's a bunch of 25 to 20 to 30-year-old adults now that I taught high school Sunday school to, and it is so cool. There's one guy that's just come back to the church over the, after the pandemic, that he's has him a big job working as an architect for a big home builder here in town, and just having him come up and give me a hug, and just the relationships and stuff are just kind of completely different. That I taught him Sunday school 10 years ago. So anyway, it's fun stuff.
So don't anyways it though, like that's big. That's huge. It's clearly what fuels you. And I know this, I think it's great. Hopefully don't downplay that.
So that's generally kind of mentoring is what you're talking about, right, Lou? So, to Rachel's parallel lines, I kind of do a little bit of the same thing. I go through my life and I try to find younger guys and mentor them. I've got several that we're working with today, and I teach them the things that I wish that someone had taught me when I was in my early 20s. I teach them about business and taxes and relationships. Sometimes it's, I understand that you're mad at that guy, and I understand that you feel like that part of what you need to do, this is a conversation I had yesterday, part of what you need to do as a man is that you need to get him back for how bad, he hurt you, or he screwed you over, whatever. But I'll tell you that this is a conversation I had, so I'm kind of repeating that a little bit, but just by doing that, what you're really doing is you're giving him free rent in your head, and you're giving him control over who you are, and whether you see it or not, that negativity, even if it's only directed at one person, will bleed over into all your other relationships. So what you have to decide is, I'm done. I'm not there anymore. That guy can't affect me anymore. God's got a plan for him. Maybe he's going to turn it around. Maybe he's not. But either way, I did my time. I'm out from underneath that. I'm just going to wash it and go. I need to focus all my attention and all my energy into my next success. And I don't need to spend that time looking back. Well, I really wish that somebody had taught me that when I was young in my 20s. And teaching guys about, hey, be passionate, whatever it is you like to do. I've got a guy that I'm working with that, he loves playing in the dirt. I can imagine him as a kid, building little sand castles or something, because he loves playing in the dirt. So, what am I doing? I helped him start an excavation business, and, bought the equipment and, I put the fuel behind him to get his excavation business off the ground and going. And, and he loves it. It's very successful. But, if you just find find people that have, I didn't really call it sparkle, but just, that have the drive and the desire. And a lot of times it's guys, at least for me personally, the guys that I end up being attracted to is guys in that capacity, is guys that I'm, maybe had a rougher life growing up. And, for whatever reason, I feel like not having a dad is a pretty hard thing for a young man. And so, if I can, I'll never be their father, but if I can step in and give them some of those lessons, from a man, from a successful man and a man of God, if I can give them those lessons to help them get their life on track, going in the right direction, then, I want to do that. And so kind of the thing that I'm alluding to, or that I will get to eventually, is I'll get to a point in my life where, I can start essentially like a nonprofit just to educate young people, on how to understand taxes, how to understand money. Nobody seems to understand money these days, and the people that do understand don't really like to teach people. So instead, we go through life chasing something that, is not necessarily going to bring you the benefit you think it will when you get it. And so try to teach about that and understand, markets and financial things a little better, and understand how to do your taxes a little better, and understand relationships a little better, and understand business a little better, and what makes this company successful over that company, and what makes this one different than that one. And, talk about the things like another conversation, guys want to buy a new truck. Well, he wants to buy a truck with a V8. And I ask him, okay, so, what makes you want to have a V8 over a V6? Well, because it's louder. It sounds beefier. I'm like, well, okay, so does the sound of your truck define who you are as a man? Well, no, but that's our culture today is kind of leads to that, right? You have to, young people are taught that they have to present them. Yeah, they have to present themselves in such a way that they get validation from other people's opinions of them. And so my goal there is to say, no, well, if that's your goal, then you're basically setting yourself up for failure, because there will always be people that have a different opinion about what success looks like. And so if your validation comes from other people, then, how do you ever win in that game? You never do.
Exactly.
And so trying to teach those things. And so, that's kind of been part of my focus for the last few years is mentoring and supporting and teaching and helping, and kind of what ended up leading into this expert concrete training, because, there's a lot of components of that will be in this business that are in this platform. So so today, you work for Vox, and you do cloud storage for big companies. So our audience is fairly broad. We have owners, business owners, architects, guys that end up finding us for construction related stuff, but we get into all kinds of other, discussions about economics and law and all kinds of things. If people want to come find you, how do they get to you? And would it, you're sharing a lot of stuff with us here, but would it help you if owners or architects or, people come to find you in your current business to do business with you?
It probably wouldn't. It probably wouldn't unless they were in Houston and had over 3,000 employees. Wouldn't help me directly, but I love helping. I love helping any organization or helping people be successful. And like what we do is we give a really secure place for people to keep their content, right? And if I think about concrete work from a sales perspective or from an engineering perspective, there's things that you need to share with external parties. And email is not always the best and most secure and the and most secure way. So that's what we help organizations with, is being able to, frictionlessly be able to have the security around your content. And then number two, be able to collaborate, like being able to send a sales order to be e-signed by a customer or a vendor, or being able to have, being able to send over a CAD drawing to somebody and have them not have to have the CAD software to be able to just preview it on their phone or look at changes,
right,
or be able to get changes out to the field really, really quickly across any device. Those are the kind of things that we would do. And it's box.com, box.com, if anybody's interested. And as you're doing the podcast, as you're sending out this information, you're more than able to provide any of my contact information as well, if there's owners that I can help.
Well, we'll put it into the show notes. Any last parting thoughts or comments?
Not on my part.
I do. Yeah, I do. And Dave, this has been a pleasure to get to talk to you twice in 1 week. I absolutely love you as a brother and a friend, and I'm hopeful that 30 years from now we're still having these great conversations.
Well, if the last 20 is any example, then we probably will be.
Yes, sir.
Well, thanks for joining us. Thank you, everybody. I hope you got a bunch of content out of this episode, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Have a great day.
That's it for this episode. If you like this episode of Foundations, be sure to head over to our website, expertconcretetraining.com, for training videos and content tailored to your needs, interests, and job role. You can find topic and/or document links from today's discussion in the episode notes on our website. We appreciate your feedback, questions, and support. For specific job-related technical questions, please go to the Experts on Demand tab at expertconcretetraining.com. To suggest a topic for discussion on the podcast, please email info@expertconcretetraining.com. On behalf of David and myself, thank you for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you. The hosts and guests presented within this podcast have experience working with concrete, allowing them to provide insight concerning various construction conditions that might differ for the listener. The content materials, as well as the products referenced within this podcast, are presented for general information only and are not presented as professional advice. Reference to specific products or service providers does not constitute an endorsement nor illustrate that a particular result can be achieved. Listeners should take care to follow all product manufacturers' warnings and instructions and understand all applicable safety codes. The opinions, views, and statements made within this podcast are those of the hosts and guests only. If you have any questions, concerns, or issues on your project and need additional support, please reach out to your manufacturer or consult with a firm like ours for specific and direct assistance with your particular needs and concrete.